immediately called 911, the staff did, and the ambulance came within minutes. And Billings Clinic is just 10 minutes away from there. And by the time we got to the hospital, my symptoms had completely resolved. But I went into the ER and they put me in the scanner immediately. So that was kind of overwhelming.
First time I knew about the situation was I got a call from the Billings Clinic saying they needed our help on the camera to evaluate a patient who may be having a stroke. She actually went to CAT scan before I saw her, and so I had seen her scan before I saw her. So I immediately was very worried, even though I didn't have anything to correlate with that finding. When I got on the camera, she actually looked really quite good. She, was having all the commotion going around of getting hooked up and getting EKGs and things, but really she was moving everything. She just had a little bit of a facial droop on the right side. But since there was this finding on the CAT scan and the right-sided facial droop, I was pretty certain that this was going to be a pretty dangerous situation, even though she looked reasonably well at the time. I think she had been quite severely weak on the right initially, and then she had recovered to almost back to normal by the time I saw her. So it was a situation that was kind of dangerous because her exam would suggest that she's going to do okay, but her imaging suggests that she's actually at risk for a major stroke event with a high chance for fatality.
They talked to me about taking TPA, which is a clot-busting drug, and that takes a while to get in. In the meantime, they made air ambulance arrangements to fly me to Swedish Medical outside of Denver. They specialize in neurological disorders, and I think took off at about 11. We got here, they got me to Swedish Medical. The clot and the carotid artery were cleared up by like 1 a.m. and could just feel the joy at having succeeded.
The most common type of stroke, which was the type that Miss Kennedy was experiencing, is due to a blood clot that's blocking blood flow to part of the brain. The outcome from that situation completely depends on the ability to get blood flow back to that part of the brain. The longer it takes to do that, the more likely it is for there to be permanent, irreversible damage that would then correlate with disability or death. The medical term for it is a tandem occlusion, and what that means is there's actually two blockages rather than one. And so the main issue is that she had a blockage in the middle cerebral artery on the left, which can be a fatal stroke by itself. But in addition to that, she also had a blockage in the internal carotid artery in the neck on the left. And the combination of those, when there's two of those blockages, it increases the chance of death and major disability, such that about 55% of people will eventually die from that stroke, and probably another 20% or more are going to be permanently disabled as a result of it, if you can't get the treatment. So, fortunately in her case, she was able to get the treatment before the bad outcome could happen. You can imagine it's sort of like FaceTime versus phone. If you're interacting with somebody, you have so much more information just from the visual input, expressions, subtle things that you can't even describe when you're interacting with someone. It's the same way and maybe amplified for medical evaluations. For me, I can see this little flattening of the crease in the right side of the face, and that tells me a lot, actually, more than I would get over the phone for sure. What I would have heard probably in this case is patient's back to normal. We're going to admit her for a TIA evaluation, which is a warning stroke, but not a stroke that's going to leave any permanent sign. And that would have been a situation that would have been very bad in this case, because she would have eventually decompensated and had a major stroke if she hadn't, gotten aggressive treatment despite really looking well at the time.
There are some people I'd like to thank: Blue Sky Neurology and Blue Sky Telehealth. Just all the care I've received has been phenomenal.